The waste of the week goes to taxpayers funding a superintendent's salary who lives out of state and the federal government's effort to produce Russian television programs in Moldova. Joining us right now is the president and CEO of OpenTheBooks.com, Adam Andrzejewski. Adam, good morning.
Good morning, Jan.
Before public outrage led to his resignation, California Superintendent of Equity Daniel Lee made more than $160,000, all while living in Philadelphia during his entire tenure. What were his responsibilities, Adam, and how in the world was he able to fulfill this job while living on the other side of the country?
Well, look, Jan, you know the first rule of success in business. It's the rule of just show up. And this guy was phoning it in. He lived in Pennsylvania, not California, and he basically had no ties to the state of California. His job responsibilities are also controversial. This is a position that promotes social justice and racial equity. These are philosophies that run opposite to the philosophies espoused by, for instance, Martin Luther King Jr. It promotes that America is a fundamentally racist country, and it's, King promoted that it's not your skin color, it's the content of your character.
And I'm curious, California's Department of Education has an existing policy that staff can live elsewhere only under rare circumstances where out-of-state residency is required for the job. So how does this apply to the former superintendent of equity? I still think this is an interesting policy they have going on right here, that you can actually, be a state employee and live out of state.
So Politico did the underlying investigation, and they had no idea and could come up with no evidence as to why this exemption was waived. You have to get an exemption if you're going to live out of state for a California state job, and there was no evidence that it was waived. Furthermore, there's no evidence that this hire had any previous ties to the state of California or to school district education. He's a psychologist. He's a life coach, and he writes self-help books.
And there's also some questions about the way he was hired, I understand. So according to some of the investigations that you guys have done, the job description was not posted. Is this standard procedure?
Well, it's not standard procedure. They're supposed to post the job description, and there's a public purpose to that, to open it up for competition and other applicants. But Jan, there's also another rule of success in business. Sometimes it's not what you know, it's who you know. Right. And there's allegations that he was best friends with the state of California superintendent of education. For instance, in the past, he'd attended his wedding.
So there you go. That answers a lot of questions right there. Has there been any kind of mention of adjusting the policy of staff working out of state as a result of this?
Well, look, I think California needs a lot of reform. In this circumstance, it seems like the underlying law was good. They just didn't follow it. Look, California needs a lot of reform on pay, perks, and pension benefits for public employees. Jan, our auditors at OpenTheBooks.com, we found that LA County lifeguards can make up to $392,000 a year.
Oh my gosh. Wow. So I want to talk about this other story that you guys did an investigation on. Russian troops right now are on the border of Ukraine as they threaten to invade that country. But as President Biden and Democrats threaten sanctions against Putin, the federal government is funding Russian language television series of pilots in Moldova. Moldova, for a lot of folks that don't know where that's located, it is a country that is wedged between Romania and Ukraine. So before we even talk about the politics of all this, Adam, you got to break this down for us. How much money is the federal government spending on this? And what are these television shows? And why is the U.S. government even involved?
Well, we shouldn't be involved. And who knew that $500,000 of U.S. taxpayer money in Moldova is going for Russian language entertainment television programming over the course of the next 2 years. These are grants that right now are being run by the State Department. They just put up this grant. It's breaking news from our auditors at OpenTheBooks.com that in December, they made these grants available to filmmakers and TV producers in Moldova. Here's the rub, Jan. The official language of Moldova isn't Russian. It's Romanian. 75% of the country speaks Romanian. Only 11% of the country speaks Russian.
So they're trying to put Russian television in a place to basically fulfill one type of culture there for the Russian government, it sounds like. What do you make of this grant program, considering what's taking place between Russia and Ukraine at this point?
Well, Putin has a playbook, and as a part of that playbook, it's to use American taxpayer dollars through agencies like the State Department for pro-Russian programming. And the Biden administration is falling right into Putin's playbook.
This seems like it's going to be a huge story. All right, Adam, we appreciate you joining us this morning. Thanks so much. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, Jan.